Whether you work in the BDC department or you just handle internet leads or you take inbound phone calls, in fact, if you just work with the public in general, you're going to have customers who ask for what seem to be on the surface completely unreasonable requests. And in this particular situation I'll be showing you today is no different. I was working at a dealership with the BDC department when one of the agents, her name is Ashley, turns to me and says, "John, how do you respond to leads like this?" She showed me the lead information in which I discovered the customer came through the Kelley Blue Book Trade and Marketplace where the value of her car was assessed at right around $8,000. It's disclosed that the customer owes $15,000, so there's a $7,000 gap. On top of that, the vehicle the customer selected is priced at $29,000 and the customer would like to be all in at $20 grand total. So that's $9 grand off the selling price, that's $7,000 in negative equity, $16,000 needs to be absorbed in some way, not including tax, title, license. So when you have a customer who's asking for something that just seems unreasonable, how do you respond? What you're about to listen to is a conversation I had with that customer. I called the customer with Ashley on the speakerphone to try to walk through, what their expectations are. I wanted to educate the client on how to handle their balance, on their payoff, and on how to manage their expectations on pricing. I hope you enjoy this live conversation. I'm Jonathan Dawson with Sellchology. I'll check back with you at the end of the call.
Okay, Jewel, I am sitting here with Ashley, and I'm Jonathan Dawson, Sales and Customer Service. How are you today?
Good. How about yourself?
I am fantastic, but I'm getting better.
Okay.
Listen, the reason for my call is Ashley was just running past me a little bit of your goals, and she was asking me what I thought of as far as what our options would be to help you get into a nicer newer vehicle from your Chrysler 200 that you have. And she was asking me because she knows that I'm kind of an expert at working with customers who have unique situations where it comes to their payoff value or, a negative equity situation or, just things like that. She knows I'm kind of really good at explaining those things and also finding creative solutions for the banking.
Awesome.
So that's why she wanted to reach out to me since I was walking around here today. She said, "Hey, let me show you a situation and see if you can help me put a smile on Jewel's face."
Okay.
So I just want to let you know, I do have you speak the phone real quick right now, and Ashley's sitting next to me, so say hi.
Hey, it's Ashley.
Hey, Ashley.
So what I want to do is I want to ask just a few questions so I can get a more clear understanding of your goals. This will just take a few minutes, and then from that, I can begin to work on your behalf to see what is the best options in my inventory and what's the best way to position that to the bank so that we can get you into something that you're excited about, okay?
Okay.
Okay, so the first questions I always want to ask is, I'm always curious first how people found us or the car. Can you tell me a little bit about your research? Like, how did you end up on a specific car or contacting our dealership? Just give me some backstory.
So I did the Kelley Blue Book cash thing, to get the value of the car that we're trying to trade in.
Okay, excellent. And then from there, that submitted the information to us and then Ashley reached out to you. Is that right?
Correct.
Oh, excellent. And then prior to Ashley reaching out, what other familiarity did you have with Schottenkirk in general? Do you live and work in our area of Canton, or what else do you know about us?
Not much. You see the dealership came up on the listing, but that's all that I know.
Okay, fair enough.
I live in the Marietta area.
Oh, you're Marietta. Perfect. I actually live out that way as well. I'm kind of on the East Cobb side over by Shallowford and Sandy Plains.
Yeah, that's us.
Is that where you're at too?
Yeah, you might be my neighbor.
I might be. I'm right off of our road is actually called Cary Woods, but it's Holly Springs Drive.
Yeah, we're actually in the Cedar Forks division right off of Holly Springs.
I actually grew up right down the road from you. I used to live in Shadow Bluff Drive.
Okay.
My parents actually live in Cedar Forks.
Yeah, we love the area.
Yeah, it's a great area. So obviously the dealership then is just so you know, because I drive here, it's right at 22 minutes from my driveway to this driveway, so we are relatively in close proximity, so that makes it convenient. But when you were doing your research, a lot of people when they're shopping online, like yourself, they either start with first trying to assess their current car, and then work within the math of that, and then try to find the new car they'd like to replace it with. Others obviously start with the new car first and kind of try to narrow down what they want and then kind of work it that way. Is there a particular reason you started with looking at information on your trade compared to narrowing down your what you want? What drove you that direction?
Oh no, I started with what I wanted. So I'm very, particular, and I know exactly what I want.
Oh, excellent.
But it's just finding one in that price range. And so, what we ended up doing was we bought 2 new cars at the same time.
Okay.
And I traded in a Dodge Durango for a Charger.
Oh, excellent. Okay.
And,
how recent was that?
We bought both cars about the same time, so almost a year ago now.
Okay.
And so the Chrysler is actually my husband's car.
Oh.
And what we realized now over the last year is that now we do not have a vehicle that can fit all of us.
Oh, interesting. So just to clarify, so I understand your needs, you're saying that at one point you had bought 2 vehicles, the Durango got traded in for the Charger, and now it's time to replace the 200, is the thinking. And you said you don't have enough accommodation for your normal driving, like passengers. Is that what you're saying? You carry mostly people stuff, just you in the car? What's normal driving?
Well, not necessarily normal. So to and from work isn't a big deal, and my husband and I both work at the same place, so usually we carpool anyway.
Okay.
But we've got 2 children left in the house, and they are 17 and 18-year-old boys, and they're both almost 6 feet tall. So trying to get any one of them in the back seat of this little Chrysler is a problem.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I'm 6'3", so I know a little bit about that. Yeah. Okay, so is the concern, the primary concern that's driving the decision to move out of the Chrysler 200? Is it really just accommodating convenience and space? Is that the main reason?
Yeah, for the most part it is.
Okay. So when you were looking at, you had said, and you actually in this case remind me of my wife in this way, she's also fairly, I like to say she has earned the right to decide what kind of life she wants. So that's my polite way of saying she's picky. So she knows what she wants, but you said you had done some research on what you want. So replacing the 200, what did you narrow down as your replacement options?
A GLK 350.
Specifically that vehicle?
Yeah, well, I really like the C300, but, obviously the same issue we have with the Chrysler. They won't be able to get in the back seat. They
won't. Yeah, but for the looks of the C300, let them be uncomfortable.
I know. Well, that's kind of what I said, too, but...
Right. I'm with you. You got my vote. Let them suffer.
He said it defeats the purpose.
Well, it does, but if you're going to have no room, better to have no room in a C300 than no room in a Chrysler 200.
Exactly.
No, that makes sense. And then you had expressed that both the vehicles that you're referring to are the Mercedes products. What's your familiarity with Mercedes? Have you owned them before, or what's attracting you specifically to Mercedes?
Yeah, prior to my Durango, I had an ML350, and I loved it. I loved, just the customer service, the maintenance, wonderful. I just love it.
Yeah. Well, I can't argue with you on those points. Okay. Well, so you had said that the goal of finding that vehicle was obviously in some ways limited by 2 things, the value on your car and then, of course, the selling price of the new car, all working within a budget. Yeah. So first things first, on your pre-owned car, I saw the value come through from the trade-in marketplace, and I guess you have a copy of that as well. Mm-hmm. And from what I saw from just the screenshot, it looked like the difference between your payoff and the value of the car, just the difference was about $7,000. Is that correct?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So that's obviously pretty sizable. Now, there's technically 3 ways that a client can handle their balance, and obviously it's entirely up to you, but I want to just make sure when we're looking at options that I put it in the computer the correct way. I don't know from your conversations and research or from your purchases if anybody's ever taken the time to properly explain that to you, but you do technically have 3 options concerning your balance. Are you familiar with what those are?
So I know that we could, kind of roll the negative equity and then pay it off, of course. So those are the only 2 that I'm familiar with.
Well, fair enough. So let me kind of go through it. You're pretty close anyway. So the 3 options that everybody has on their balance, and this is true whether you have negative equity, positive equity, it doesn't matter how much you owe, $2,000 or $20,000. Everybody legally has the same 3 options, and what they are is the first option, number 1, is to simply write a check for the full amount and pay off the car entirely. In this case, writing a check for the payoff would be somewhere around $15,000. Now, most people can't do that. But it is the best thing to do, of course, because it transfers the full equity of your car to your new car, lowers payments dramatically on your new loan. It increases your trade-in flexibility, reduces finance charges, it's the best possible thing to do, but very few people can write a check for something like $15,000. The second option then is actually to write a check for a portion, which is actually what we see a lot of people doing. So writing a check for a portion, we see sometimes as much as half, but what that does is it still gives you that benefits. It still transfers more equity. It still reduces payments. It still obviously reduces finance charges and increases flexibility. So the second option is very popular to try to do that. The third option is also what you mentioned, which is to try to roll it in. Of course, that's pending the bank's approval, but unfortunately that would raise payments and in some cases rather significantly. And in a case like this, whenever you're rolling in and you have especially you don't get the value of any equity and then you have $7,000, just using normalized, kind of average rates, $1,000 translates to $20 to $22 per thousand borrowed on a payment. So if I roll $7,000 of a negative equity into a new car at $20 on the low side, it gets me to $140 added to my payment range. So just if you try to do that, and of course we had a bank that would work with us on that, it's added $140 to your monthly budget automatically, which most people obviously would like to avoid. So that's why a lot of customers are taking option 2 pretty seriously to try to secure lower payments. Given those three options so that I can put it in the computer and try to figure out what I can find that fits your goals, would you be inclined to write a check? Would you be inclined to write a check for a portion? Or you're more comfortable with having the higher payments and trying to roll it in?
I mean, I wouldn't be, so against rolling it, but it just depends on the interest rate. I don't want to be paying, quadruple on it just because of a high interest rate.
Yeah, no, clearly that would be a factor as well. Like I said, on towards the low side of an average, $20 per thousand is fairly normal. Like I said, depending on the situation and the term, it can go as high as $25 per thousand. But $20 at $7,000 in difference is $140 a month in payment, and that's of course pending a bank even allowing us to do that. But if a bank's willing to do that, then whatever the base payment would be on any new vehicle you pick, you would be adding an extra $140 a month to it to try to manage that secondary loan. But like I said, I can put it in the computer multiple ways. I just want to always have a frank conversation, especially when we're dealing with this type of a negative situation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So were you saying, would you like me to put it in more than one way, or how would you like me to do it?
Yeah, let's see what the options are. Clearly we would not be in a position to write a check for the full balance.
Like I said, most people can't.
So,
yeah.
Right.
Yeah. What would you like me to factor in if you gave me two scenarios? Try it one way A and one way B. What would you like me to do?
So paying a portion on the balance?
Yes,
and
ma'am.
And obviously rolling it.
Okay. And what would you like to do as a portion?
I don't know. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, and like I said, at this point we're just in hypothetical stage, so there's nothing, there's nothing concrete here. It's just so we can run a few scenarios.
So let's say $2,000.
Okay. I'll put a note on that. I have Ashley make a note. So we'll run one scenario where we see if the bank will accept it with a complete roll-in, and we'll do another scenario where you're contributing $2,000 towards the balance, and we'll let the bank know that. As far as on the newer vehicle that you're interested in, the particular one that you've selected from our inventory that matches the basic criteria of the model and make that you want, obviously it's at a price point, of I think 28 and some change, 29, right? So that's at $29,000. So at this point, if we just assume $29,000, and for now, instead of $7,000, we'd add $5,000 if we're doing the option where you're putting $2,000 towards it. So that's looking at financing somewhere around $35,000 plus, basic tax, title, license stuff. So that one there is really nice, and obviously somebody's going to put it in their garage. But is that along the lines of how nice a vehicle you want, or are you looking for something maybe that has a little bit older, a little more miles? What was your goals when it comes to the vehicle?
So if I can get that make and model, but an older year, I'm fine with that.
Mm-hmm. So here's what I can do for you, and this is where we can do a little work on your behalf, and we're happy to do so. When it comes to the value of a vehicle, like I don't know on the GLK, brand new, I don't know what they would run brand new. Have you ever looked at them brand new? I think they're like 65 or something. Does that sound right?
38 maybe. That's
on a brand new GLK.
Yeah.
I thought they were higher than that. I don't look at GLKs that often though.
Yeah. Ones that I've seen. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
Again, depending on what you want in it, I'm sure, they can definitely, vary a lot.
Yeah, so I'm gonna pull up one. Actually, Ashley's pulling up one on her computer right now, so we can just kind of get a baseline for them. So, brand new ones. I just want to have a frame of reference so I can get an idea from a brand new going down how we can find one that fits your budget.
Absolutely.
So right around 40,000 then is what they're coming in at. So that sounds right. Oh well. They look a lot more expensive than that. Okay.
They do, don't they?
Yeah. Okay, so 40,000 is like a new one. So what we'll like to do then, as far as price points go, keeping in mind there's really only 6 factors that ever reduce the value of a car, period, and they're always the same 6 factors. It's going to be the condition of the car, the history of the car, how old it is, the miles it has, the equipment it has, and then the supply and demand in the marketplace. Those are going to be the factors that drive down price of a vehicle or that drive it up. So in terms of these 6 factors, condition, history, how old it is, miles, equipment, and supply in the market, on a vehicle that's 40,000 brand new, if you were targeting, I think she had said from her notes you were targeting about 20,000. Is that right? Does that sound right?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're looking for a vehicle that's lost essentially about 50% of its value. So from 40 to 20. So in order to do that, obviously we would then want to find something that's got, some condition issues, some history, like maybe a couple of owners. Obviously the older it is, that helps. The more miles it has, that helps. The less equipment it has. And if you're flexible on colors, silver, black, and white are the most popular. Blues, greens, and reds are less popular. So if you're willing to go with like a blue car, you typically can get it at a better price than a silver or black or a white, for example. So based on those things there, Jewel, let me put a profile together of the vehicle that we would need to look for on your behalf. Concerning these options here, condition, history, how old it is, miles, equipment, and the color, right? Which of those would you say you're most flexible with? The condition, history, how old it is, miles, equipment, and the color.
I guess the color is probably less important.
Okay.
I'd love to have a sunroof, but I can get away from that.
Okay. So as far as colors, so that would mean, like I said, the reds, the greens, the blues are going to be, again, just marketplace general. Those are the statistically speaking, the least desirable colors. And so would you be comfortable if we found a red, green, or blue?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right. And then as far as equipment, you said there's some things you're willing to forfeit. You are willing to forfeit something like a moonroof package, a tech package or whatever. It doesn't need to be the fully loaded with the Supreme stereo and all that, right?
Correct.
Okay. What about miles? If it has, 70,000 miles versus 20,000 miles, that makes a huge difference on the price.
It does. And, of course, I'd like to stay, less miles as possible.
Absolutely. Keeping in mind that on the average, every 10,000 miles translates to about $1,000 or more in pricing. So if I had 2 side-by-side vehicles, one had 20,000, one had 30,000, I'd expect about $1,000 to $1,500 price point difference just because of miles.
I understand.
So what would you feel comfortable as far as miles? If it had, 50, 60, 70?
I would say 60 and less.
Okay, 60 is our target and less. Okay. And then the age of the vehicle on a 60,000 mile one, it's probably just because of, if it's got 60,000 miles, it's probably 4 to 5 years old. So we're talking 2013, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Is that about what you've seen?
Yes.
Excellent. And then on the history of the vehicle, some people are really picky and some people are open to this. Some people say, you know what, if it's even been in an accident, as long as it's not frame damage, but if it's been in a fender bender in Atlanta, it's normal. I'd be okay with that if it drives down the price. Some people are like, nope, I need to have a perfect Carfax. So do you have flexibility with that?
Yeah, definitely some flexibility.
Okay, so flexibility on the history. So if it's had like 2 or 3 owners, maybe a small accident, it's okay.
Yep.
Excellent. And then overall condition, we'd expect it to be clean, but, you know, it's going to maybe have a couple of rock chips. It's going to have maybe, you know, stuff like that, a scuffed wheel or something, but nothing dramatic, nothing, no like cigarette burns and, you know, nothing like that, right?
Right. Correct.
Okay. So basic wear and tear. Okay. All right. So here's what I'm going to do then. When we put all this into the computer, if we take a desired price point of $20,000 and we still, let's say, put $2,000 towards the balance, which leaves at this point a remaining $5,000 that needs to be carried in, that gets you to $25,000 plus tax, title, license. Let's say that puts you right around $27,000. If we do the same math we did before, I'm just doing simple math right here on a piece of paper, but if we do that times, you know, $20 or so per thousand, that's going to put you right at $540 a month, estimated. Is that in line with your expectations? Because I want to always be working with your goals.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Okay. So that's manageable.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Well, then, if you'll allow me, Jewel, what I'll do going forward is if you'll allow me a few minutes to get some work done with Ashley, and then I think this particular one that we originally found on our website probably exceeds your goals because it's going to put us clearly closer to $35,000, which is going to be more like a $700 payment.
Yep.
So, you know, given the difference between those two of what we just, you know, kind of built out mentally and the one I have on the ground, if you can justify for all of the, you know, upgrades and the low miles or whatever, if you can justify $700, we'd love to show you how we can try to make that work. Otherwise, we'll go to work on trying to find one that's, you know, got a little bit more life on it, but it's a little bit more affordable. What would you like us to do?
I'd like to find something a little more affordable.
Yes, ma'am. That's our pleasure. So then let us go to work, and I'll make sure that Ashley stays in touch with you. We also have people who go to the auction all the time and are looking for vehicles. We can always pull a history report and know what we're buying before we buy it. So if we find something of real strong interest, we'll let you know. As far as your timeline, it sounds like it doesn't have to happen tomorrow, but it's something you'd like to get done pretty soon. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so we'll just work with an as soon as possible timeline, and we'll just work on your behalf. If you find something on your end and you decide to pull the trigger and it's not something we had in our inventory, I want you to also know, feel free to reach out to Ashley if you'd like us to do either a competitive market analysis on pricing or a complete history report on it. Let's say you find something at ABC Motors and they've got something you really like, but you're just not 100% confident in the way the salesperson's treating you or in full disclosure that they're being completely honest. Please feel free to reach out to Ashley, let her know, or you can store this number, and this is my personal cell, and I answer directly to our owner. And you can feel free to reach out to me and say, hey, Jonathan, you know, this is Jewel. I found a vehicle. I think I want to buy it. But before I pull the trigger, can you just confirm for me that the price is right and the history is right? And we'll be happy to do that at no additional cost just to be nice to people. Is that okay?
Okay. Yep, sounds good.
Okay. Ashley, anything else on your end? Nope. She's got a page full of notes. I got a page full of notes. Let us go to work for you and see if we can help you out. Okay, Jewel?
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your time. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
I hope you enjoyed that sneak peek into some Sellchology live with a customer as I attempted to educate and inform the customer on how we can assist them in their process and really help them find the vehicle that meets their needs and their budget. Now, obviously, there's a lot I covered in this conversation. There's a lot that should have been covered probably the very first time the customer was engaged. And just so you know, what happened shortly after this conversation with Jewel on the phone is we went ahead and shot another video of the vehicle and also of myself as an introduction. I'm going to include that video at the end of this, so stick with me here. You'll see that video. And also, we continued through a text dialogue that set an appointment with Jewel to come into the dealership to not only look at the vehicle that she originally found on the website, but for us to do a formal appraisal of hers as well. The goal of Sellchology is to empower and teach and equip salespeople on how to understand the psychology of the sales process, what's going on emotionally and psychologically for the customer, to create raving fan advocates. And that's really what my goal is. If you like more information on Sellchology, just Google Sellchology. That's Sellchology. I'm all over the web and all over social media at Sellchology. And let us know if we can help you personally or your organization. I'm Jonathan Dawson, trying to save the world one salesperson at a time. Thanks for tuning in.
Hey Jewel, it's Ashley over at Schottenkirk. I just wanted to show you this vehicle one more time. I think it would be worth your while to come and take it for a test drive, and this would be why right here.
Hey Jewel, Jonathan Dawson just spoke to you on the phone. Wanted to show you what a 6'3", 200 and something plus pound guy looks like in the back of the vehicle. As you can see, the legroom here is obviously a lot different than on the Chrysler 200, and also headroom wise, it's completely different as well on the Chrysler 200 than on this vehicle here. So I think spatially your sons will be comfortable. And here's the other thing. So with your vehicle, because you have a Chrysler 200 product right now, and quite frankly, if you didn't have that kind of a car, I wouldn't even try to invite you in, but because that's a car we could use in our inventory really well, I'd like to invite you in for us to do a formal appraisal on it. On top of that, while your vehicle's here, if it needs to be topped off for gas, or if it needs a nice wash, we'll give it a wash, or heck, if you need an oil change, we'll get you scheduled for an oil change, so that can happen at the same time. While your vehicle's here, we'll get it formally appraised, we'll take good care of it, and if it makes sense mathematically, we can show you what we can do formally on this offer here, and that way you can get a couple things done. You can get a clean car, a fueled up car, or you can get your oil change. And if it does work out, you can leave your car with us, we'll put it in our inventory, and you can take this bad boy home. So I'm Jonathan, thanks Jewel, and I hope this made sense, and let Ashley know when you can come in. Bye.